There's a moment when journalism dies, when the mask slips, when pure hatred reveals itself. That moment happened this week, broadcast to millions, and nobody in the mainstream media even flinched. A CNN anchor made a joke so vile, so disgusting about a dead woman's grave that even hardened political operatives had to gasp at it. But here's the thing. It wasn't a slip. It wasn't accidental. It was completely endemic of the left. It was the culmination of years of dehumanization, years of propaganda, years of teaching their audience that some people deserve no dignity whatsoever, even in death. What you're about to hear is going to shock you. Not because one man said it, but because an entire industry applauded it. The media isn't biased anymore. There's something far worse. Keep watching. Now, gold has always been the go-to safe haven during inflation and global uncertainty. And right now, prices are soaring to all-time highs. This is why smart investors are looking at Opawica Explorations Incorporated, trading on the U.S. market under the ticker OPWEF. Opawica is a gold exploration company operating in the legendary Abitibi Gold Belt and Quebec, one of the richest gold-producing regions in the world, responsible for over 190 million ounces of gold from more than 120 mines. Their flagship properties, Bazooka and Arrowhead, are surrounded by multi-billion-dollar players like Yamana Gold, and they've just kicked off a massive 20,000-meter drill program across these prime sites. Backing them, legendary gold investor Eric Sprott, who invested $1 million of his own money, clear validation from one of the most trusted names in the business. With a strong infrastructure, proximity to proven mines, and leadership from CEO Blake Morgan, a third-generation miner, Opawica is strategically positioned for discovery. Shares are currently trading at around 11 cents, but with exploration underway, the upside could be completely explosive. Visit opawica.com to see their latest presentation. That's opawica.com, OPAWICA.com. Jim Acosta crossed the line. He crossed the line that he never should have crossed. In a moment that exposed the soul of modern mainstream media, CNN's propagandist-in-chief decided Ivana Trump's grave was comedy material. His exact words will make your blood boil. Listen as Acosta mocks a dead woman buried at her ex-husband's golf course, turning her final resting place into a punchline about immigration. This is completely despicable.
I got a question, though. Where are the ICE raids at the Trump properties?
Yes.
Could somebody call ICE on the Trump golf course in Virginia?
Yes.
You're telling me there's nobody in there that is undocumented or has some kind of squirreliness going on with their paperwork? Give me a break. Hey, how many immigrants has he married? He's got one buried at his golf course in New Jersey. Isn't she buried by the first hole or the second tee or something like that?
The first hole, yeah, it's the first hole.
Immigrants always doing the jobs that Americans don't want to do.
Isn't that what it is?
Despicable. Disgusting. Look at these hens laughing with glee. This is what Democrats consider to be like some sort of hardcore mic drop. Alex Acosta. It's like, ho, 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 you just dropped the mic. Immigrants always doing the jobs Americans don't want to do. About a mother's grave. A woman who fled communist Czechoslovakia. This is your mainstream media. The White House immediately condemned it as disgraceful. But disgraceful really doesn't capture the depravity. Look at her. Look at their faces. Look at this lady laughing. I mean, it's sort of par for the course. I mean, kind of look at her. You know, I mean, we could go off on her looks or whatever, but we don't have to do that. Look at her laughing. That's This is a man so consumed by hatred that he will desecrate the dead for a cheap laugh. We're talking cheap laugh. He thinks he's funny. This is a guy who actually had a press pass to the White House press room. This is a man who was actually able to sit here and ask the president questions. What a despicable human being. And the panel, they laughed along like clapping seals. Not one person said too far. Neither of them said, hey, we're talking about a dead woman. Ostensibly, these are feminists who allegedly are supposed to care about the lives of women. Not one of them showed any basic human decency. All they did was laugh. But Acosta wasn't done. He's building a permission structure for violence, calling Trump a danger to this country. This is not his first rodeo. He's praising the mobs who are opposing him. He's praising the mobs. Let's take a look.
The President of the United States is a danger to this country, full stop. And I think what we saw over the weekend with the No Kings protests is a mobilization, but to some extent, a recognition that that is the case. And I think you're starting to see some of this reflected in the polling. Even people in the Republican Party were afraid to show up at his birthday parade, the dictator Kim Jong-un birthday parade that he tried to have over the weekend, where you saw the video of the tank going by the empty stands and you heard the squeaking of the tracks of the tank, and it was sort of like, what is this? And so, I think the other thing is folks have to have hope. You have to have hope that we're going to get through this. If hundreds of thousands of millions of people had shown up and cheered on Trump as those tanks were rolling down Constitution Avenue, then maybe I'd be a little bit more worried today. But what I saw over the weekend was the millions upon millions of people who are opposed to what he's trying to do to American society showing up in almost every town and community in this country. That was a very powerful thing.
I mean, he's wearing a suit, but this is absolutely low rent. This is totally low rent. Kim Jong-un's birthday parade. That's what Acosta calls honoring our military. He mocks empty stands while ignoring millions who support Trump. This is classic propaganda and gaslighting. He's inverting reality, projecting weakness where strength exists. The contempt runs even deeper. Watch Acosta explain how protesters should behave, not peacefully, but strategically. One might even say Machiavellian. He's coaching an insurrection. Let's take a look.
Well, and you make a good point about how the protesters behave out there and how they operate out there, because it seems to me that what Donald Trump has done in LA and what he's trying to do in other places is lay a trap. He's trying to set out a mousetrap. He puts the bait in the mousetrap to see if somebody will spring the mousetrap. And he wants an overheated response from protesters. And if you don't give it to him, then you deprive him of the oxygen that he needs on Fox and all these other places. It seems to me. I don't know. Maybe you might agree.
I think that is exactly right. And that has been my cry. Don't take the bait.
Like liberals have ever needed a reason to riot and to scream and cry and screech and scream about their points of view. I mean, the quietest they've been is, when the handmaids were walking down the street in silence. I mean, what does it take to get a liberal to shut up? The translation here is be smarter about your violence, hide your intentions, be more Machiavellian. That's a dark core trait. Okay. Make Trump look like the aggressor while you are the one who destroys the city. This isn't journalism. This is tactical advice for domestic terrorists. The radical Muslims have a name for this. It's called taqiyya. You ever heard of it? Tell us what you know about taqiyya in the chat. The idea is that when you're among your enemies, you hide your intentions while you infiltrate them so that you can build strength, so that you can obliterate them. It's basically Muslim Machiavellianism. Now, Acosta reached a new low even for him. And during Trump's first term, I wasn't sure he could even reach a new low. I mean, he was bloviating in the White House press room for years. I'm not sure why they let him in. You know, he positions violent mobs as real American strength while calling Trump voters weak. Take a look.
And then on the other side of things, you have these massive, huge protests. I mean, from New York City to Missoula, Montana, where people just took to the streets and showed out in force. And it was really, to me, if you want to know about what America's strength is all about, I looked at the No Kings rallies that took place over the weekend, because what it showed was that America's democracy has not been defeated by this dictator wannabe. I mean, he can try to roll his tanks down Pennsylvania Avenue and flex his muscles and all of that stuff. And you know, Pete Hegseth can show up in a camouflage tie that he got at the Gap. But at the end of the day, the real American strength, the real American might that was on display over the weekend, I think was in those No Kings protests across the country. Because what it shows to me is that accountability is on its way. Accountability is coming. We may have to wait until 2026. We may see some glimmers of hope here and there in the gubernatorial races, congressional races that are coming up. But it showed to me that people are hopping mad. They're taking to the streets, and they're not going to take this shit lying down. They're just not going to do it. And, you know, I think what Trump did over the weekend just clearly backfired.
What a putz. Accountability is coming for you, Alex Acosta. This is from Jim Acosta, from the same man who spent 4 years lying about Russian collusion, bloviating in the White House press room, taking to the streets. Take it to the streets no matter what. You know, this is from the same network that called January 6th an insurrection. The hypocrisy isn't just stunning. This is classic narcissistic projection. You know, here's what's really happening. Acosta and his media allies have created a two-tiered system of political violence. When the right protests, it's terrorism. When the left riots, it's justice. When Trump holds a military parade, it's fascism. When the left attacks cops, throws bricks at our law enforcement officers, this is democracy in action. Unreal. I can't even. This is hard to. It's hard to watch, you know, because they've moved beyond bias into active incitement. Every segment, every snide comment, every dehumanizing joke sends the same message to their audience. Trump supporters are simply not human. They don't deserve respect, dignity, safety, not even in death. Now think about the psychology here. You don't joke about someone's dead mother unless you have completely dehumanized them. You don't joke about it unless you see them as less than human. And that's where Acosta and the mainstream media live right now. It's a sadistic mental space where Trump and anyone connected to him, they exist outside of moral consideration. And we've been here before. This is how genocide begins. Not with camps, not with bullets, not with trains, but with dehumanizing jokes like this. The steady erosion of human dignity until violence becomes not just acceptable, but necessary. And Acosta knows this. This is what they think. They think that violence is necessary because they don't see us as human beings. CNN knows this, and they're counting on it. Remember, when they fired anchors for Remember when they fired anchors for minor ethical violations? Now they celebrate people who mock the graves related to our world leaders. Imagine if it were your mom, your father, someone you love who was resting peacefully in a grave. You remember when journalism meant afflicting the comfortable? Now it means afflicting the afflicted, kicking corpses for ratings. And the most revealing part here, his colleague's reaction, not shock, not disgust, laughter, agreement, amplification. They egged him on. Tells you everything you need to know about the newsroom culture at places like CNN, CNBC, and MSNBC. This wasn't one bad actor going rogue. The only reason he has a voice in the first place is because he has been amplified over years. We're talking decades at this point. Now, Mayor Karen Bass joins Acosta to discuss immigration, and watch how they frame the conversation. Not about law, but about convenience. Take a look.
I mean, I don't think there's a big dispute around people who are major criminals. The big dispute is going to a bakery, going to, see women in the park who are taking care of other people's children, to see construction workers. We have a city to rebuild, or a neighborhood, a major neighborhood, the Pacific Palisades. How are we going to get it built if there's no immigrant labor? Because they say that about 40% of the construction industry is Latino. I think that's a total underestimation.
Wow.
I would suggest double that.
Well, and you mentioned the Homeland Security Secretary. I have to get your response to what took place late last week with Senator Alex Padilla. I thought that was absolutely horrible, the way he was treated. And you being the mayor of Los Angeles, I wonder if you had any information as to how that went down, what happened there. Just an awful thing to see for the whole country, the whole world to see.
Well, no, I did talk to the senator right afterwards, as soon as I learned about it. But I think what is not reported so much is the fact that the FBI escorted him in the building. And so How could he have been some rogue individual if he's brought in the building and brought in the room by the FBI?
What a putz. Seriously, what a bunch of schmucks. They have so much contempt for Americans. Who's going to build it if not for illegal immigrants? Who's going to do it? Jobs that Americans don't want to do. This is, it's just absolutely dark. Okay, listen. Who's going to pick our cotton? Yeah, that's basically what they're saying. That is basically what they're saying. Who's going to pick our cotton? They need cheap labor from basically from slaves. And remember, the Democrats are the original slave owners. Acosta represents something darker than media bias. He's the embodiment of elite hatred for half of America. Like the people who they say don't want work, they sneer at us. He's a propagandist who would rather see the country burn than to see Trump succeed. And he's not alone. He's just the most honest about it. So you got to hand it to him for that, right? I mean, can you believe this guy had a press pass? Sickening. Gary, the great Gary Franchi, he is the one who needs a press pass so that he can go into our press room, into the White House, and get to the bottom of this. If you got any value from this report, please tap subscribe. My final thought is next. This matters because words create worlds. This is why we're careful when we speak to our children. When CNN's top anchor jokes about dead mothers and calls for street violence, this is not just revealing about his character. It's revealing about the entire agenda can you believe they let this guy like on the air? It's amazing. It's incredible. The media isn't reporting on division. They are the ones creating it. They're not documenting hatred. They're spreading it. Every vile joke, every dehumanizing segment, every call for accountability, all it does is push us closer to the abyss. Now, Acosta showed us who they really are. They're propagandists, and they will dance. They will do the Macarena on your grave, as long as it hurts Trump. They will do the electric slide on your grave as long as it hurts Trump. You know, they wonder why nobody trusts the mainstream media anymore. And I can tell you something. This is why. You know, they wonder why Trump calls them the enemy of the people. Watch that clip again. Watch the glee, the utter glee on these ladies' faces. Like, they don't support women. They're talking about the grave of a dead woman. They don't support women. You know, when you mock the dead and praise the violent, you are not press. You're provocateurs. Now, here's my question. Should Acosta be fired for mocking Ivana Trump's grave? Yes or no? Sound off below. Give us all your comments in the chat. We really want to know about this. Like, you already know what I think. He should never have had a job in the first place. But if you stand against media hatred, wear it proudly. Check out our merch shop, linked in the description.